Hello, folks. I'm Josh McGee, and welcome to another episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, very excited for today's episode. As you can see, more changes to the home studio behind me. Over here on this shoulder, I have one of Chelsea's alternate jerseys from a few seasons ago before they switched to their new sponsor. And then over here on my other shoulder, I have one of the more recent Belgian national team jerseys. I just love that sash. Kind of reminds me of those old USA jerseys. And of course, you've got that blood red also there. With Belgium's golden generation, it was a good time to pick that one up. I'm also wearing an LA Galaxy shirt. Now, I'm not a supporter of LA Galaxy, but it's a shirt I got at my first and only MLS match that I attended. It was the LA Galaxy versus the San Jose Earthquakes, the Galaxy's original rivals in MLS. The Galaxy won on that day. I was excited because I got to see Steven Gerrard play for 4 minutes. He was subbed off early with an injury, but the likes of Ashley Cole and Robbie Keane were still out there and helped lead the Galaxy to a victory. So moving on, again, plenty of soccer to get to today. We've got some Champions League, the group stage wrapped up there. Going to have to recap all of those groups. And, of course, we have an MLS Cup final this weekend. Very excited to analyze that match and how we got there. And, of course, some big STL soccer news this weekend that I will get to here at the end. So very excited. Can't wait to talk about all that soccer. But once again, I find myself having to open up the show talking about a serious issue or something that went down in soccer over the past week. But I want to start off with this point. The pandemic really ruined a lot of momentum in professional soccer this year. You had it throwing a wrench into a lot of seasons across multiple different countries. You had protocols really throwing off players and how they prepare each week for matches. And of course, the biggest thing being is that fans weren't really allowed in stadiums this year. Of course, now we are starting to get back to that. We're starting to see fans return to the stands. So there haven't been a lot of positives throughout this year in terms of what the pandemic has ruined. However, I do want to point out that a small positive has been, of course, because of the lack of fans, there's been a lack of racial incidents. Last year, I can remember just writing about the slew of incidents involving racism across multiple different leagues in multiple different countries. It seemed to be spiraling out of control. And I talked a little bit about how FIFA and UEFA, while they've done campaigns and had slogans saying no to racism, they haven't really done a lot of, boots on the ground, thorough work to help rid it from the sport. But because of the lack of fans and having to do with mostly those incidents involving fans and players, we haven't had a lot of those this year. However, there were a few major incidents from this past week that just go to show how far we have to go on this issue and how far we have to go to get racism out of football. I want to start off with the Champions League match on Tuesday between PSG and Istanbul. PSG playing for the right to advance out of Group H, whether it be in first place or second place. Early on in the match, it was after a foul had been committed or hadn't been called by the official when one of the Istanbul coaches became very irate. He vehemently opposed what the referee had decided. The referee came over to issue a card, but wasn't sure which assistant coach he was supposed to issue the card to. So he asked for assistance from the fourth official. The official, who was from Romania, spoke in his native language and identified the coach as the black one over there, using a word that closely resembles a racial term. Well, players from Istanbul and the coaching staff became visibly upset. We're just screaming and yelling and saying what had happened. We have audio from that match that kind of confirms what was being said between the fourth official and the coaching staff. The Istanbul players then began to walk off. Some of them confronted the officials. You can just see clearly former Chelsea and Newcastle star Demba Ba talking to some of the officials on the sideline. They walked off in protest. The PSG coaching staff and players, once they had learned what had happened, also walked off the pitch. So the match was suspended. The officials and UEFA trying to come to agreement with both clubs as to how they were to proceed. They were unable to fully remove the fourth official. They were going to remove him from the sideline, but put him in the VAR booth. Both clubs refused to accept those terms, so the match was abandoned. It picked up the next day, early Wednesday afternoon. PSG went on to win that match 5-1 to top Group H. But of course, this incident just has cast a huge cloud over the entire match, not just the match, but also, again, over all of professional soccer, because once again, racism in football has the spotlight. It has once again created a huge firestorm. You pair this with what happened in the English Championship between Millwall and Colchester. It was a Millwall home match fans were allowed back in the stands for the very first time. Before the match, players from Millwall and from Colchester knelt before the beginning, which has been happening, over the past few months to show solidarity and unity against racism, and the Millwall supporters booed those players. You fast forward to this week when Millwall hosted QPR. After a QPR goal, a couple of those players went over to the Millwall supporters section and they knelt and took a knee and they raised a fist. So here we are once again with a couple of major incidents of racism and football, and they cannot be tolerated whatsoever. I don't care whether they're big or they're small incidents. You cannot tolerate them if you want to get racism out of football. I know there have been a lot of people saying that the fourth official, again, what he said, it wasn't as big of a deal as some of the other incidents we've had over the past few years, but it doesn't matter, because if you continue to allow for these things to happen and to make excuses, things will continue to progress in a worse direction. When it comes to fan behavior, I understand that that's going to be tougher to control over the coming years, but again, this incident in the PSG match was with an official. Again, someone who is supposed to be the most unbiased person on the pitch, identifying one of the coaches on the sidelines as the black guy. Think about that for just a moment, for those of you who don't think that this is a big deal. The coach was not addressed by his name. He was not addressed by his position. He wasn't even addressed as sir. He was addressed by the color of his skin. That's incredibly demeaning for someone who has worked their way up towards being an assistant coach for a Champions level club. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's just demeaning for any human being to be addressed as the color of skin and not by their name or just who they are as a person. It's just terrible. And again, coming from a member of the officiating crew, it's just terrible how this has happened once again at a high level of football. It's an issue that, again, continues to plague our world. And I come back to my original point that I talked about last year when I wrote about this subject. What are FIFA and UEFA going to do? This is not something that a peppy slogan is just going to fix. There need to be wholesale changes. There need to be harsh punishments for supporters groups, for clubs, or for officiating crews that have this type of behavior. They cannot stand for it. It cannot be tolerated. And we need to start coming up with solutions to this problem instead of finding excuses to make up for these situations. Again, it's a great week of football, especially with the Champions League group stage. We got loads of stories to talk about. I wanted to talk about a few of the disappointing or some of the surprising teams from the group stage in this segment. But here we are once again having to deal with the problem of racism in football. So I feel for the coaching staff of Istanbul. I feel for those players. That's just an incredible, tough situation to deal with. They shouldn't be responsible for having to stand up and take a message there. It should be the governing bodies at FIFA and UEFA that should be able to come up with a solution and take charge in the situation. It shouldn't be up to the players to just out there to play a match and they have to deal with this utter nonsense. So once again, racism in football rearing its ugly head across multiple different leagues and teams. And with fans coming back soon at fuller capacity over the next coming months, I hope that we are not just back in the same situation that we were in a couple of years ago. So here's hoping some changes are made, that we learn from these incidents, and we continue to move in the right direction on this issue instead of continuing to move backwards. So like I said, I hate having to start off the show talking about such a negative issue, but that was the main takeaway from this week. But as far as the action on the pitch is concerned, the biggest story has to be the wrap-up of UEFA Champions League group stage. All 8 groups finished up with the last match day, and we'll be moving on to the knockout stage, which isn't until February. Oh, it's going to be such a long wait. But we have those results. I want to break down each of those groups, who is advancing out, and how the final match day went down. So let's start with Group A. We already knew that Bayern Munich were advancing out of that group as the top seed. They went on to beat Lokomotiv Moscow 2-0. I thought the big storyline in that match was them welcoming back Alphonso Davies, who made his first start since his long layoff with injuries. He came in during the weekend at the Bundesliga match that they were involved in, but this was his first start since his long-term injury. The intrigue was second place. It was either going to be Atletico Madrid or FC Salzburg. Well, Madrid were able to put in a complete performance, their best performance of the group, I believe. They just had looked very unbalanced and very unsure of themselves, but they were able to come out of there with a 2-0 victory to pick up that second spot in Group A. Bayern, again, the reigning champions, they look the part, and they're going to be the favorite going forward to win this competition once again. Atletico, like I said, it might be a good time to possibly play them if you're one of those top seeds that won their group. But Diego Simeone, one of the best managers in all of soccer, is going to have those guys ready. They've been a defensive powerhouse since he's got there. So it's going to still be a pretty tough challenge to knock them out in the next round. Moving into Group B, which was the most interesting group of them all from the standpoint that all 4 clubs were still in it on the final match day. You had Real Madrid taking on Borussia Mönchengladbach and Inter Milan taking on Shakhtar Donetsk. In the Madrid match, again, they have not looked very good during this group stage, especially in those 2 losses to Shakhtar. But much like Atletico was able to do, Real Madrid were able to put together a complete match here. They beat Mönchengladbach 2-0 behind 2 goals from Karim Benzema. A couple things from this match. Karim Benzema, one of the most underrated strikers in all of the world. I know he's had a little bit of a troubling past, but in terms of his career on the pitch, he's just incredibly reliable. He is so good about getting into the box, finding that space in between defenders, and rising up and knocking in those headers. That's where both of his goals came from. He got some great service on the day as well. But again, Madrid are just a completely different team when Sergio Ramos is at the back, when he is leading his side. He was missing from, I believe, both matches versus Shakhtar, and he's been missing for a little bit in their La Liga campaign. But he was back here in this match, helping to command that defense. And again, they kept a clean sheet, and they were able to get things done and win that group. However, even though Mönchengladbach lost, they advanced as the second-place team in that group because Inter Milan and Shakhtar Donetsk played to a 0-0 draw. Inter hit the crossbar at one point in that match, but again, with all the firepower they got, Romelu Lukaku, Lautaro Martinez, they should have been able to get this done against Shakhtar. It's just another disappointment for that club. This is the 3rd straight year that they were eliminated in the Champions League group stage and find themselves out of the tournament. You've got to fear for Antonio Conte's job at some point, especially because they're in a dogfight right now in Serie A. But again, Zinedine Zidane, Real Madrid, able to get things done and get the top seed in that group, which is important, again, going forward, that they avoid certain clubs in the next round. Borussia Mönchengladbach, who I believe were the highest scoring club in Group B, also move on. Congrats to them. Next up in Group C, not a lot of intrigue in this group. We already knew that Manchester City had taken the top spot, and they would be followed by FC Porto in second place. Both those clubs enjoyed shutout victories on the final match day, but I guess the biggest news came from Manchester City because U.S. men's national team #1 goalkeeper Zach Steffen made his Champions League debut for the English club. Also in that match, Manchester City welcomed back striker Sergio Aguero, who came off the bench and scored in that victory. So again, good developments there for City to get their main talisman back up top. And also, again, for the U.S. men's national team to see another guy make his Champions League debut, get the clean sheet, get the shutout, was an excellent overall performance there by Manchester City. Moving on to Group D, which actually had the 2 noon kickoffs here, local time. We already knew that Liverpool had taken the top seat in the group, so it was down to Ajax versus Atalanta. After Ajax had been reduced to 10 men in the 79th minute, Atalanta's Luis Muriel scored in the 85th minute. It was the match's only goal, a 1-0 victory for Atalanta, so they move on as the second seed in that group. Again, hats off to Liverpool in this group. They were able to overcome a ton of injuries to find a way to top the group and get that 1 seed. In terms of Atalanta, I wouldn't want to play them as a top seed from another group. They're such a fun attacking team. They can really take it to some of those other clubs and peg them back and potentially keep up with them in a shootout, but they've also shown that they can grind out victories as well. So a couple of dangerous teams there coming out of Group D. Next up in Group E, nothing much to report. Chelsea had already clinched the top spot in the group, and they were followed by Sevilla FC. Chelsea drew in their final match. They put out a pretty bare-bones side. It was just good to see some guys get some playing time. There were also a couple of young players that made their Champions League debuts. So Chelsea have been on pretty good form lately. They've been really impressive on the defensive end, having shorn that up with some of the acquisitions that they made. They'll be a tough out. Sevilla, again, they've got a lot of European experience. I don't think that they're going to be favored in whoever they match up with in the knockout stage. But again, with that experience and some of the players they have, they could make things interesting. Moving into Group F, Borussia Dortmund found themselves down 1-0 early to Zenit St. Petersburg in their attempts to top the group there, but they were able to complete the comeback late on in the match. It was a 2-1 victory for Dortmund, which clinched them the top seed in the group. Elsewhere, the battle for that last spot was between Lazio of Serie A and Club Brugge from Belgium. Very entertaining match. It finished 2-2, and a draw was enough to see Lazio into the next round. hats off to Bruges, man. They really were able to take it to the other three clubs in this group, pull off some shocking results, and we're in it to the final match day. But again, Lazio, with everything that they've been able to do, and the striker Cyril Immobile, who I've been talking about, scored another penalty kick in this match. He's one of the best scorers right now in Europe, and he's going to be the main reason why you would think Lazio might have a chance in the knockout round. All right, now we're going to get to the two most disappointing teams from this week. Let's start in Group G, and let's start with FC Barcelona. Barcelona had a lot of leeway in their final match versus Juventus in order for them to top the group. They just needed to lose by less than 3 goals, but they were unable to do so. Juventus kicked their butts. They won 3-0 behind 2 goals from Cristiano Ronaldo and a great wonder strike by U.S. men's national team member Weston McKennie. Barcelona, once again, were all over the place. Messi didn't really have a chance to imprint his style on this match. He wasn't getting any help either. And again, that Barcelona defense has just looked disastrous without Gerard Piqué and with some of the young guys that they've been deploying back there. They were just unable to stop Juventus. And again, Ronaldo comes up huge in a big match and was able to get things done. And Juventus were the ones that topped that group. For Barcelona, it stinks now being the second seed in that group. They're going to go up against a top winner from one of the other groups. But of course, that also stinks on the other side. While Barcelona have struggled in La Liga, they've been pretty successful in the Champions League up until this match. That's going to be a really tough draw for someone to get in the knockout round. And last but certainly not least, Group H. We just talked about PSG winning their match eventually against Istanbul. That's what got them the top seed in that group. However, the importance of that match in terms of whether they were going to move on or not was moot by the time that the other match had wrapped up on Tuesday. Manchester United only needed a draw versus RB Leipzig in order to advance to the knockout stage, but they found themselves down 2-0 inside 15 minutes and 3-0 into the second half. A late Bruno Fernandes penalty and an own goal wasn't enough to complete the comeback. United lost to Leipzig 3-2 and are finding themselves going to the Europa League. Again, it just shows how far Manchester United have fallen to be down that early. Leipzig were just completely utilizing their width. They were getting up and down the pitch at a tremendous rate. Former Manchester City player Angelino opened the scoring, and he provided the assist on the second goal. And again, it was like United got gut punched right away, and it all has to do with their defense. You had Wan-Bissaka out of position. You had Harry Maguire out of position. They were unable to mark on a set piece. There was another goal that got ruled for offside. The deficit could have been even worse in the match before they got things going. And again, it just goes to show that right now they don't have the right pieces and they don't have the right manager to put the right guys out there and to compete in these matches early on. We've seen them have to make comeback after comeback in the EPL, but they couldn't get it done here in the Champions League against tougher competition. You can't put yourself in these holes early. You're going to get burned, and that's what happened here. Not having Paul Pogba out there, I know they're having some type of debate or argument with his agent, people saying comments in the press. He's got to be out there. He's one of the most talented players on any given day, and he just had such an impact on the match once he got out there. United were the only EPL club to not make it to the knockout stage, and now they make their schedule a lot tougher with the Europa League matches that'll be coming up here in the coming months. Although I will say hats off again to RB Leipzig. Their offense has really caught fire over the past couple of weeks. They're able to get it done. Of course, if you remember, they were semifinalists last season in the Champions League. Now they make it to the knockout stage here in only their third campaign in club history. So congrats to them. They were great on that day. I got to give them a lot of credit. But again, united with their expectations and the talent that they have, it was just amazing how quickly they were down in this match and that they were eventually knocked out of the Champions League. So that does it for the Champions League group stage. It was very entertaining, but I got to say, in terms of how the teams finished in their groups, there weren't too many surprises. The draw, I believe, comes up later this month, but I do know that the knockout stage will begin in February. A lot of interesting matchups that could happen. Who's going to draw Barcelona? How do the EPL teams fare? A lot of intrigue and possibilities to discuss over the next few months. Now let's move into soccer in America, and let's discuss the big cup final that is coming up tomorrow night. It's going to be the Columbus Crew SC taking on Seattle Sounders in the MLS Cup final. For the Columbus Crew, it'll be their third appearance in the MLS Cup and their first since the last time they were in it when they hosted it in 2015 and they lost to the Portland Timbers, who were coached at the time by the current Crew manager, Caleb Porter. For Seattle, of course, it's just an amazing run for them. This is their fourth appearance in the last 5 seasons, and they'll have an opportunity to move into third all-time in league history in terms of MLS Cup wins if they're able to capture their third title. So how did we get here? Let's first take a look at the Eastern Conference Final. It was Columbus Crew SC taking on the New England Revolution. It was a tight, scoreless match for nearly an hour before the Crew's Arthur was able to finish off a nice offensive move with a side-footed effort for the match's only goal. Both goalkeepers were excellent. The Revolution's Matt Turner made 6 saves, but he was outdueled on the day by the Crew's backup goalkeeper, Andrew Tarbell, who has been filling in for Eloy Room, who has been out due to COVID-19 protocols. The Crew have shown some great goal-scoring prowess in these playoffs, but they were able to grind out a victory here against New England. As for the Western Conference Final, man, were there some fireworks. It looked like Seattle were dead and buried by the 67th minute when Minnesota went up 2-0, with Emmanuel Reynoso scoring the first on a beautiful free kick and then setting up Bakay Dibasi for the second goal. However, the match completely changed when Seattle were able to bring on St. Louis's own Will Bruin. The striker paid immediate dividends by latching onto a loose ball into the box and firing it home to get Seattle on the scoreboard. Late on in the match, striker Raul Ruiz-Diaz and center back Gustav Svensson were able to latch on to a couple of corner kicks to get those last 2 goals and to complete the comeback deep into stoppage time for the 3-2 victory and to move Seattle into the Western Conference. Hats off to Minnesota. They played a great opening half. Emmanuel Reynoso, even though Minnesota are not in the final, should really be considered for player of the playoffs. Set that assist record, scored that beautiful free kick, had Minnesota just flying and had Seattle on the ropes. But again, the introduction of Bruin to put more attacking prowess on the field, they got that first goal, and you could just see the spark in Seattle switch when that happened. They were able to execute on those set pieces. I don't know how you leave Ruiz-Diaz that open on the back post, but it happened. They were able to get things done. Seattle at home, it's almost a virtual guarantee at this point. I believe that's 15 straight home victories in the playoffs for them, and you have to consider them the favorite in this matchup versus Columbus. I think Columbus is pretty balanced. They've got good guys at each levels of their team, but Seattle, with all that firepower up top, Jordan Morris, Raul Ruiz-Diaz, Nicholas Ladero, and of course now you got Will Bruin off the bench. The defense, they're going to have to short things up a little bit. They were exposed in this match versus Minnesota. If Columbus can continue to be effective on the counterattack and really put home their chances when they get them, they could be able to pull off the upset here as they are the host of the MLS Cup Final. But still, Seattle have to be the favorites. It was an incredible match versus Minnesota. Columbus got things done on their end, and it should be a very good match tomorrow night for the MLS Cup. Now let's move into some women's soccer news, and the big news coming out of the NWSL this week was the announcement of an approval for an expansion side in Kansas City beginning in 2021. That club will be taking the place of Utah Royals FC, who are currently winding down operations. All players, draft picks, and other assets from that Utah club will be transferred over to the new Kansas City team. So this means the NWSL will be returning to Kansas City for the first time in, I believe, 3 years since FC Kansas City was dissolved. It'll be good there to get a team back and have those fans have something to cheer for once again. It wasn't a very good finish there with FC Kansas City, so I'm looking forward to what this new group and this new club can do there. And while it does stink that Utah is losing their club, in terms of the NWSL and the amount of clubs that they have, at the very least, they're not losing anybody. They're keeping the same number, and they're continuing to add new expansion clubs. Another story I wanted to highlight here was U.S. Women's National Team member Sam Mewis scoring the game-winning goal for Manchester City in their 2-1 UEFA Champions League victory this week versus Gothenburg. Mewis has had a fantastic season alongside Rose Lavelle. I also want to highlight in the FA Super League, Manchester United currently leading in that table, and of course been led by Tobin Heath and Christian Press. Also, Alex Morgan, I believe, scored her first goal for Tottenham since she's joined up with them there. So again, the U.S. women doing fantastic things right now for their English clubs, and are doing big things at multiple different levels and leagues over there in Europe. And lastly, I want to get to some USL Championship news. Obviously, it's been a busy offseason so far, a lot of player movement, a lot of players re-signing with their old clubs, but I did want to highlight a couple of big moves from some clubs this week. I want to start off with Phoenix Rising FC, who have had a very busy offseason. They've already announced, I believe, 3 or maybe 4 new signings, but this one I thought was very intriguing. Rising FC announcing the signing of the 2019 USL League One MVP, Arturo Rodriguez. Rodriguez spent some time this past season on loan with the Real Monarchs before returning to North Texas SC where he was able to compile quite a bit of stats during his time there. Over the past 2 years, he was able to rack up 10 goals and 11 assists for that Texas club. So he's going to be making the jump up to the USL Championship. And again, the rich keep getting richer. Another great offensive option for Phoenix Rising FC as they will look to hopefully complete next year's season and be crowned USL champions. Another big move was made out west, this time by Sacramento Republic FC. They signed Finnish striker Petteri Pananen. The 30-year-old striker has 16 years of senior team experience and has featured in matches in the Europa League, in Champions League qualifying, and for the Finnish national team. So again, big-time experience factor there. Someone who's got a proven goal-scoring record, added to a great team in Sacramento who will look to continue to push in the Western Conference and challenge the likes of Phoenix for that conference title. So again, a couple of big moves out there from some West Coast teams. It's been a very active offseason. We'll continue to monitor some of the other signings, and I'll get to another major signing from the USL Championship here in just a little bit. Before we get to that, I spent last week a lot talking about the English Premier League. I want to highlight some of the other leagues from around the world. So for this segment, I'm talking about the top 5 matches outside of the EPL from the past week, not including the Champions League and Soccer in America. We already broke some of those down. So first up at number 5, I'm going to Liga MX in Mexico, where they are currently involved in their playoffs. And I'm talking about the second leg between Pumas and Cruz Azul. Despite having a 4-0 lead on aggregate after the first leg, Cruz Azul conceded 3 early goals to Pumas, who would eventually score in the 89th minute to win that match 4-0, tie Cruz Azul on aggregate 4-4, and advance to the next round of the playoffs on away goals. Just a tremendous collapse by Cruz Azul. I mean, you usually think that with those situations, you would be able to pack it in, but Pumas came out firing with those 3 early goals in that match. And again, credit to them. They had to be dangerous. They had to be aggressive, and they were able to get things done there and move on to, I believe, the final round in the Liga MX playoffs. But we've seen these types of comebacks before in the Champions League. You think about, I believe, the Liverpool versus Barcelona. Barcelona had to do a similar type of comeback versus PSG. It happens at every level in professional soccer. Next up, at number 4, I'm going to the German Bundesliga. I'm going to a match between Eintracht Frankfurt and Borussia Dortmund. A beautiful individual goal by Gio Reyna was able to save a 1-1 draw for Dortmund versus Frankfurt. It was disappointing for them to drop points, but still, they were able to get a result, and they're having to deal with the loss of star striker Erling Haaland, who's going to be out for the rest of the month due to an injury. Having to lose one of your star players and also, again, your main striker and have to play sort of a different formation with him out. They were able to at least pick up a draw here, stay in the race for the Bundesliga title. And again, just another bright spot to see Reyna scoring for Dortmund, coming off his debut for the U.S. Men's national team and his involvement in the Champions League. So good for Gio and good for Dortmund right now having to deal with the Haaland injury. Coming in at number 3, a Serie A matchup between Juventus and Torino. Torino, who actually sit near the bottom of the table in Serie A, led this match 1-0 for most of it until, again, U.S. Men's national team player Weston McKennie was able to equalize late on in the match. And then Leonardo Bonucci, center back, was able to latch on to a set piece to get that last goal, to get the 2-1 win for Juventus, who are currently in a 4-way battle near the top of the Serie A table. It was a much-needed 3 points for that club. And again, before his Champions League goal, McKennie scoring for Juventus. He's on quite a roll now for that club. He's getting a lot of playing time, which is great for him and great for the U.S. Men's national team. But again, Juventus needs all the wins that they can get right now. Serie A table is very close at the top. You got teams like AC Milan, Inter Milan, and Juventus. Of course, you got like Napoli and some of the other clubs near and around there as well. So again, 3 points is at a premium, and they're able to get things done here. Next up at number 2, before their disappointing loss midweek to Juventus in the Champions League, Barcelona saw their La Liga slide continue last Saturday when they lost 2-1 to Cadiz. Barcelona had over 80% of possession and nearly 3 times as many shots as Cadiz, but they lost the match, and now they find themselves in 9th place in the La Liga title. It's just amazing how poor Barcelona have been. I know Gerard Piqué has been out, but he's really been fading, and he's in the twilight of his career. The rest of the defense has just been pretty abysmal. Sergiño Dest has been a pretty bright spot, though, for Barcelona, but he's not getting consistent playing time, especially in La Liga. They just don't have anybody in the midfield who can possess the ball and can help control the tempo and control the match. Obviously, in their glory days, they had the likes of Xavi, Iniesta, Fabregas, but right now, those guys, they're just not doing a good job of controlling the match. And again, of course, Lionel Messi, he just seems to be in a funk. We had that big saga over the offseason of him possibly wanting to leave Barcelona. I don't know if his head is totally in it, but he's not getting much support. Antoine Griezmann has pretty much been a bust since joining Barcelona. And of course, Luis Suarez leaving, I think, was a bad move to let him go. He was a pretty consistent source of goals. And right now, Barcelona are just not having the success in front of net as they've had in the past. So them losing that much ground, it's pretty safe to say at this point, they will not be involved in the La Liga title picture. Of course, that's good news for the two Madrid teams and for the rest of La Liga. And lastly, coming in at number 1, I'm going back to the German Bundesliga. It is always a big deal when Bayern drop points, but the way that they did it versus RB Leipzig was truly spectacular. That match ended in a 3-3 draw. Fantastic offense on both sides. You had Thomas Müller scoring a couple goals for Bayern Munich, including the late equalizer, while Leipzig got goals from the likes of Christopher Nkunku, Justin Kluivert, and Emil Forsberg. Leipzig are now just 2 points behind Bayern Munich, who still are at the top of the table, but it's getting really crowded up there. You've got Bayern, you've got Dortmund, you've got Leipzig, you've got Mönchengladbach and Bayer Leverkusen. It's pretty crowded up there. And again, anytime that Bayern drop points, it's a big deal because that opens it up to other teams. Leipzig were able to pick up a point here. Dortmund, unfortunately, weren't able to do much because of their draw with Frankfurt. But again, I think that the Bundesliga title, it's going to come down to the wire once again. You still got to favor Bayern. It's been that way for the past few years. They've been able to figure it out at the end. But with some of the injuries that they've had to deal with, they're still without Joshua Kimmich. We'll have to see if some of these other clubs can take advantage. But again, 3-3 draw, thrilling match in the Bundesliga. And Leipzig, like I said, they're on a roll right now and could be potential title challengers to Bayern Munich. So those were my top 5 matches outside of the EPL from this past week. Looking forward to this weekend, a couple of big matchups on the cards. You've got the Manchester Derby, Manchester United versus Manchester City. Right now, City are trying to claw their way back into that top 4, whereas you've got a lot of things going on at United. They really could use a big-time win against their rivals to bring them back up to where they need to be and to get some positivity over there at that club. Over in Spain, you've got the Madrid Derby. Atletico Madrid currently in first place in La Liga, trying to hold off Real Madrid, who are coming off the big win midweek to get them into the next round of the Champions League. That's always a good matchup. And in France, you've got PSG versus Lyon. PSG are firing on all cylinders right now. Neymar is at the top of his game. He looks really good. And they've got Kylian Mbappe back healthy and scoring goals. But we'll see, you know. Lyon's got quite a bit of talent over there still. Who knows? Maybe they'll be able to stick with them and cause PSG to drop some points. So those are the 3 biggest matches from this weekend. Of course, we got an MLS Cup final. You've got matches all over the place. It's going to be another great weekend of soccer. Now let's move into some local St. Louis soccer news. And I'm going to start off with St. Louis City SC and some comments made by the MLS Commissioner Don Garber at his annual State of the League address. Garber once again had high praise for the new St. Louis club. When asked about the club's first few months, Garber said one of the bright lights this year was all the progress in St. Louis. Their brand launch was spectacular, and they've done an enormous amount of work both on and off the field. Garber also went on to praise the club's new stadium renderings and the amount of season ticket deposits that they registered. Again, it's nice to hear those comments from the MLS Commissioner. St. Louis has hit every benchmark so far and exceeded those benchmarks. They've been some great hirings in the front office. We just had that ceremony with the steel beams that a couple fans got to participate in. I imagine there will be one semi-huge announcement before the end of the year. But again, looking forward to 2021, having a full year of just some more front office announcements, potentially a coach, maybe some other things as well with the stadium. So, but again, it's good to hear those comments from the top level of the MLS that they can't wait for St. Louis to join in 2023 and that we continue to impress and we continue to be at the forefront of positivity at the league office. Next up, another former STLFC player signed for a USL Championship club this week, and this was a big one. Former St. Louis FC captain and center back Fanuel Kavita signed for Birmingham Legion FC. Kavita was one of the longest tenured members at St. Louis FC, and he just passed the 10,000 regular season minute mark in the USL Championship last season. They're getting a tremendous player over there at Birmingham, but they're getting an even better leader. Fan was always a pleasure to talk to. He led both through his actions and through his words, He was a consistent presence in that back line for St. Louis FC, one of the iron horses of the league, and was a tremendous influence and really helped St. Louis to their playoff success last season and, of course, their success in the U.S. Open Cup. So congrats to Fan. Looking forward to the next step in his career. And Birmingham's defense just got a heck of a lot better. Moving on to another former St. Louis FC player who made headlines this week. Current FC Tulsa member Joaquin Rivas was called up to and started for the El Salvador national team against the U.S. men's national team in their friendly this week. Again, the result wasn't pretty. It was a 6-0 drubbing by the U.S., but still a tremendous honor to get called up. It was really cool to see Joaquin go up against some of that great talent from MLS and on the U.S. men's national team side. And again, this continues his momentum from the USL Championship playoffs. So hats off to Joaquin for receiving that call up, and hopefully he continues to get more time with El Salvador. And lastly, I want to talk about the St. Louis Ambush, who will be making their return to action this weekend. They will open Central Cup play versus the Wichita Wings. They'll be hosting them there out in St. Charles. The club also announced their upcoming January schedule for the 2021 MASL regular season. It was announced by the league that they're probably going to be releasing schedules on a month-by-month basis, having to deal with the effects of the pandemic. But the Ambush were able to announce the first month of their schedule. They'll be getting 4 home games, including the first one being against their rivals, the Kansas City Comets, and they will be playing 3 road matches. So exciting times for the Ambush. They get to come back and have some resemblance of a regular season. And right now, they're probably the highest level of professional soccer going on in St. Louis during these winter months. So depending on their precautions and the protocols due to COVID-19 that they have out there at the Family Arena, you might want to go check out and see what the Ambush are up to. And of course, they'll be fully up and running with a pretty full schedule coming up in January. So again, a lot of things going around in St. Louis. Happy to see some former players get opportunities elsewhere. Big things happening with St. Louis City SC and the return of soccer out there in St. Charles. So again, great soccer scene here in St. Louis. Even during these winter months, there will be plenty of action to keep us entertained. So to wrap up the show, I brought in a guest who is doing great work, not just in St. Louis soccer, but also in the community. We talked a little bit about how his season ended up, what he's looking forward to next year, and about a brand new project that me and him are working on together. Hope you enjoy. Well, I'm honored to be joined by today someone who does so much work on behalf of the St. Louis community. I don't even know how he has time to be both the head coach at St. Louis Community College and the head coach of Club Atletico St. Louis Bluebirds. Honored to be joined by Ricardo Garza. Ricky, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. What's up?
Oh, it's good to see you, man. Good to hear from you as well, and good to check in on you here at the end of the year with Club Atletico. Obviously, you know, not just with you guys, but everywhere in the world. This season, in terms of 2020, things just did not turn out as how people expected. Wanted to check in with you. I know I came out and saw your team, Club Atletico, in action versus the St. Louis FC Academy this past month, but I wanted to get your thoughts, because you weren't there that day, on the totality of the year. How did things turn out for Club Atletico, at least on the field, in 2020?
You know, it's not the greatest. COVID really put a number on us when we didn't play in the summer. That really took a toll for everyone. I mean, not just us, but for everyone. So when we did the fall minor league soccer championship tournament, we just tested the waters because we couldn't play in the city. We couldn't play in St. Louis County. So the only place to play was St. Charles. And so we attempted it. And, you know, our we have city fans and St. Louis city fans in that community, and the travel wasn't working out. I think COVID and things like that just didn't work out. So it wasn't the best turnout in terms of fans coming to games this fall that we're hoping for, but it's all understandable. And, you know, so from that aspect, it wasn't the greatest, but I completely understand. Inside the lines, as a team, it actually was a success, because typically we have mostly collegiate players, guys that are trying to keep playing at the level and then move on to professional level. So they're usually younger. But what we did this time, being able to play in the fall, we were able to open up to guys who were done playing college, who had no aspiration to go pro, but they're still good players and they wanted to play, and they wanted to be put together with a high level group of St. Louis players. And we didn't know what it was going to be like. My family and I said, hey, let's test the waters. And we're really happy we did, because we had 25 guys on the roster from all over the St. Louis and Illinois side. Very committed. We trained 2-3 times a week. When we first started out, we had guys traveling from Kansas City to Columbia to train. No one missed a training session. So the dedication did not drop off whatsoever, which was unexpected. And the commitment level of these guys, I mean, they really wanted to represent Atletico. So we decided to give them the team name a reserve team, because it's sort of, even though it's not an NPSL season, it's still, we wanted it to be a part of our organization. And so we call them the reserves, so that they can be identified. And they did very well for what we had and what they had. They were still learning players' names by the third game. And I thought it went really, really well. And then we finished the season as an exhibition against St. Louis FC Academy with Luis Swisher. And that was a special day. I really wish I could have been there to cap off the fall season. So I'm glad you were. So what did you think about that game, how we ended the season?
No, it was very exciting to see you guys. Also, again, great second half comeback by your club, really executed on some set pieces. But you could definitely tell about the work ethic and the preparation and still getting through what they were able to do, at least have a couple matches on this season. It was at least good to have something, to continue to keep your guys' progression. I know it's always tough, pandemic or no pandemic, to keep this club going. So again, to be able to have something, I think, was still a tremendous success. And of course, being able to go out there and play helps with your other message, which is, of course, in the community, the off the field stuff. I want to talk to you a little bit about 2020 and what you guys were able to do. I know you had some big goals and some big messages that you wanted to get out to the community and help out with. How did you think those went?
It wasn't too bad. We really expanded our network with people that are doing some good things out there. We added another person to the human trafficking fight, a former soccer player. He had played around town. He's a soccer apparel business owner. And so I was able to connect with him a couple months ago, and we're going to start an alliance of people that really want to know more about the child sex trafficking issue we have in St. Louis and do something about it. We really want to be able to go to all the soccer clubs and bring awareness to it. So although the club is sort of financially dying right now, we're just putting along on reserves. The initiatives and the community relation stuff, that's still going to go forward. So at this time, it's hard to say we're going to have a summer season. It's not looking too good. Will we have some form of a reserve team like we did in the fall? Absolutely. Will we play exhibition games? Absolutely. But it's not looking too good for an official NPSL season. It's just a big financial hit. If we don't have the fans, it's hard to go to a business for a sponsorship right now when they're suffering. And so it just doesn't fall on our family's heart to try to potentially spread the virus at our games, or try and go get a couple $1,000s from a small business who's suffering. So it's kind of like the bringing all that in together and making this decision. It's a really hard one, because you want to play, but we're just putting the city of St. Louis first before our organization right now.
And that's got to be tough for you, because, again, I know you're so community-based. You want to have these events. You want to help reach out and do well in the community. But it's just so tough when the community itself can't really be a part of it. I wanted to know about some of the things that you were able to do specifically and how you were able to overcome that situation and still be able to help the community with some of these events that you guys had.
Once COVID hit, everything stopped. There really wasn't much that we could do. There really wasn't much at all. I mean, I'm a member of the Hispanic Leaders Group, and there's some other things that I have, my hands in. The Hispanic Leaders Group gave out like 60,000 face masks all throughout the community, and did some special things. We support the obviously Hispanic Festival Inc. They're a partner of ours. I know they did a huge Thanksgiving program when providing meals and things of that nature. So, but everything just shifted, man. Everything just stopped. All the stuff that we normally did, it was so involved, and because of the numbers, you weren't able to do much other than just support things online. and try to get that going, and just kind of create relationships, a lot of Zoom meetings. But, you know, this winter, from the winter last year, I guess it kind of started in February or March is kind of when this wave started. And here we are sitting in December, and it just almost feels like a time warp where nothing has happened in the last 6 or 7 months. It's kind of depressing in a way.
Exactly. But I want to look ahead and look at it in a positive note. Looking ahead to 2021, don't know about the NPSL, but you're hoping to have a reserve team next year. In terms of getting back to your bread and butter and helping out in the community and doing some other things, what are you hoping that next year will bring? That some of the things that you guys will be able to do?
Well, we were one of the positive things was we were working towards building a stadium. We moved the process forward to selecting what it would look like, a potential site. We have met with a particular community. We have had discussions. We know where it would be. We know how much it would cost. And so now it's just the economy, waiting for the right thing to hit. And so I think we're going to be another year out from having the dream of the stadium happen. But from behind the scenes, that's one of the projects that we have been able to consistently do and have meetings about is a small 2,600 seat stadium. And I think just kind of seeing where things are right now, in order for us to have longevity in the city of St. Louis, with St. Louis FC folding and St. Louis City coming, I think there's room for one more, stadium opportunity. I think there's a need for it as well, and I think we're going to try to fill it. So that's where we are from a business standpoint, is maybe we do take a break this year, focus on that stadium for next year, and maybe pull some resources and some people that want to get behind us. The big picture of that was to raise almost $500,000 a year by giving our stadium to the community. That's was one thing that we were working on, was the proposals of how we were going to raise this money and make change in our city. And we decided to do a stadium project. So a lot of details can't be leaked yet, because we haven't signed the contract yet. But I would say we're probably halfway there to where we need to be.
Well, that's a great segue, because I was going to ask you about a different club with a different new stadium, talking about St. Louis City SC. Obviously, you're a big soccer fan and you're a big St. Louis fan. So to have that combination and at the level that they're coming into and some of the stuff that they've already accomplished, what have you liked so far about what they've been able to do, and what are you hopeful that you'll get to see from them here in the coming years?
Yeah, I like the opportunity to meet the staff and the new sporting director and Vin. He's doing a great job with St. Louis City. He's a man of all hats there. But yeah, I like what Lutz had to say. He said he was going to find players regardless of the soccer club, and he was going to try to identify kids that really connected well with us, because we're trying to do the same thing, but we're trying to do it from 13 years old down to 5 years old, and they're trying to do it at 14 up. So I hope in the future there's a good relationship there, because we try to serve kids that wouldn't normally get those opportunities, and hopefully we can find a diamond in a rough and develop that kid and pass them on to St. Louis City. So I would say the groundwork that they're doing is really cool. They really are trying to be very inclusive in terms of players and clubs. They don't seem to be just funnel-minded with just a couple clubs. I'm interested to see the coaching staff and how that's going to turn out. The community relations is going to be really important. I know a lot of the minority community here, they can see through fake marketing and things like that. So I hope that St. Louis City kind of puts their heads together and does a better job and a good job going forward of really trying to connect with community. It's not about campaigns. It's about getting out there and making relationships. So I hope that that's what happens in the near future with them, because you want to have that diverse fan base come 2023. You want to have that diversity, economic diversity, as well as cultural diversity. And that's going to be the foundation of the success of this club. If it's just one type of demographic at the games, I mean, it's not going to get as much buzz around town, you know? So I think they're so far doing the right direction. If Vin's involved, I think they're going to automatically go in the right direction. And I like Lutz's mentality of you don't care who you are, you got to earn it. And he wants to give everyone a fair chance. And I believe him. The new staff they've hired, Charles Rankin, I mean, that's exciting. You know, he was on our Club Atletico staff last year, and I helped start his academy in Zambia. Great kid. Well, he's a man. I mean, he's in his 20s, but to me, he's a young kid, and it's a good opportunity for him. And he's the right person. He's the right fit over there because he does things for the right reasons. He's played at a good level. So I think that was one good bright spot there. Of course, Tim's involved. His longevity with his son Taylor and whatnot here, you know, he knows what's going on too. So I'd like to see more hires. You know, I haven't seen more soccer people hired yet. I'm excited to see what's to come of it. But come on, I mean, we have an MLS team. It's a long time waiting, don't you think?
Exactly. I think that's well said on all accounts, man. I'm excited to see what they do. And hopefully once the pandemic gets lifted, we don't know what they'll be capable of. We'll have to see what they come up with when they're at full force. I also wanted to bring you in here today for this episode to talk a little bit about a new project. It's really your brainchild, but you're involving me in it on as well. Talk to the people a little bit about what you've come up with, what we have coming here in the coming weeks, and what your goal is of this new project.
Yeah, I mean, just like how Club Atletico is just a platform to unite people and make change through soccer, the soccer show in collaboration with Kyle Garcia and Loco Radio, he's asked me several months ago to lead a soccer show. And, you know, I told him timing's everything, you know, as soon as the right time. And that's coming up now this week. And I said the other thing is a good group of people that are going to be a part of it and passionate about it and follow through with the mission. So, you know, the lineup that we have, you know, I wanted to pull myself out of the focal point and put someone who I felt is deserving and is on his way up, which is obviously you. You know, you've done a lot of things. I've worked with you a couple of years on the radio, and you've done the World Cup. I seen you in front of the camera there, and just your passion for writing on top of all of those things. So I had told Kyle, I said, I have a person in mind that I think would be a perfect lead of our show. Let me be secondary, and then let's recruit a couple more people. So Luis Swisher, STLFC staff, he's going to be color commentary along with me. And the fourth person was very important to me, was to bring in a female. And there's a coach as well, St. Louis Community College, named Nicole Howard, who said she could do what she can. She may not be able to make every episode, but she'd love to be a part of it. And so I think we have a very diverse, fun group that we're going to have this show. And it's going to be talking about soccer, obviously, and that's going to be Josh's lead. He's going to lead us into the Bundesliga, the EPL, the Champions League. He's going to make sure that we cover the gamut. But Luis and I will cover more of the coach's tactical perspective of games, and so that the listener can understand a little bit more in depth of the game in terms of the, you know, what Klopp's, you know, gegenpressing was in that game, or the counter pressing from Pep, or stuff like that, you know? So I think that's going to make a little bit of a colorful show. And then there's other elements in there. We have a female producer, which is pretty cool, with Key. And we're going to obviously make sure that there's always a platform to promote people who are making change in our city, whether it's sports related or not. We're going to have that included. So I think it's going to be a great cultural show. I think it's going to be something new, and I think it's going to be something different. So I don't think we're really a competitor to anybody. I think we would probably be supporting all of the other shows that seem to be popping up. And I think that's more important, is to kind of support one another. But I'm excited for you to lead us on Monday morning. We're shooting the pilot, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we're getting started with this soon, and the first episode will be a couple weeks after that. I'm really excited to be joining with you, man, on this project. Again, I think you hit it right on the head. we're going to bring you 4 different perspectives and try to have a collaboration and covering not just the world game, and of course, everything that's going on with soccer here in St. Louis and the community as well. There are a lot of great shows and podcasts out there from fan perspective, from people who have been doing it a long time. I encourage people to sample all of it, get everybody's perspective. What I think our show is going to bring to the table is you guys, is the coach's perspective, why certain things are happening in certain matches, what's going on here in St. Louis. We got 2 head coaches of St. Louis clubs here. So I think that's going to be fresh and unique, and hopefully we'll be able to grow this into something. I'm really excited to be a part of the local radio and the platform that they already have, and hopefully continue to grow it. Excited to get back, hopefully, into some writing, talk to Kyle about being a part of that blog, and hopefully get back into that and help cover some of these deeper stories that aren't getting as much coverage around the community. So again, really excited to be a part of that project. We'll have more for you guys here in the coming weeks when our show really officially gets up and running. Rick, it's been awesome to have you here on today's episode. Real quick before I let you go, it's the holiday season. And again, like I said, I know you're big into the community. If people are looking to reach out and donate their time or their resources to a couple, projects or organizations, do you have any recommendations for people out there?
Yeah, we do partner up with the Hispanic Festival on Tres Reyes Day, Three Kings Day, and we do give presents to the needy. We usually do it at El Chico's Bakery down in South City, South Grand. So if you would like to donate presents for that, for kids who they don't really get presents for Christmas. They're missing clothes and jackets and shoes that fit them and things like that. If you want to get involved with that, go to our website, gobluebirds.com, and contact us there. And then we'll funnel those presents over to Hanini and Elisa with the Hispanic Festival Inc.
Awesome, man. Always enjoy your work. Thank you so much for everything that you do on behalf of the community. And again, like I said, looking forward to working with you on this new project. As the head coach of Club Atletico St. Louis Bluebirds, Ricky Garza. Ricky, thank you so much for joining me, man.
All right, adios.
My thanks to Ricky for joining me on the show. That'll do it for this episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Next week will be my final show of 2020. I hope to do a end of the year type special where I look back at 2020 and all the soccer that went down. I also hope to have a couple of people on to talk about the year from an international and St. Louis soccer perspective. Till then, enjoy the soccer this weekend, and I look forward to talking with you all next week. Thank you.